Good morning to you. As you can see, I'm sitting in a building. This is actually the church where I normally come. And it's windy and rainy, and I didn't feel like sitting in the car today. And really, I just wanted to be in comfort because the Lord's given me so it looks like a fairly long message because I've written an enormous amount of notes. And just to say, really, I'm not one of these speakers that can just stand up off the cuff and necessarily just talk off the top of my head with exactly what I want to say. There are times when I find the Lord gives me the anointing to do that. There are other times when I feel He's saying to me, just take it one step at a time. And this morning's word, that really is what I want to do with it. I don't know how many parts there actually will be to this. I only know that once I start. My messages, as you know, are not normally very long. I try not to do more than about 20 minutes because I feel that it's important to fully absorb what's being said, and especially if it isn't me saying it. And sometimes we lose concentration. And I listen to many ministries that are at least an hour long, but not everybody has the time and patience to do that. And so this message, I didn't actually know that it was going to be as long as it is. It started off with just an idea, and I thought, where am I going to get this from? And then it all seemed to flow, and it seemed to come. And so all the points that I make, I feel are, well, to me, they have some gravity. So I want to convey that to you. So I won't be doing this all in one go. So we could consider this as a part one. But I first also just want to talk about my community tab. Those of you will see that I sometimes post things on there. For instance, if I'm not going to be here to give a message for a day or two, then I'll post it on there. There will possibly will be the case next weekend because I'm going away on a conference. But usually I will be here, and I do enjoy doing these messages and serving you folk. And I'm just like you. I'm just a man. I'm just one of many voices on the internet, and I just want to be God's voice as much as possible. But about the community tab, I do post some things on there that maybe to some people would be a bit dubious. I'm referring to the young lady that I posted on there, who will be nameless. But you know, if you go on there, you will see her prophecy blogs. And some people will find that possibly a little bit too strong to take. Now, I don't post these things on there because I necessarily 100% agree with the people. I put this out there, and as I've said on one of the videos, test and weigh. And test and weigh is a very important concept, and specifically with what I'm going to share this morning. And so please, whatever you see posted on there, I appreciate your comments. And I am constantly looking at myself to make sure that I am not deceived and that I'm not following a pathway that God wants me to stay off. And I think that's a very important thing. So just to say about this word, if you see me looking down a lot, it's because I'm looking at these copious amount of notes. And if you see the film make a sort of a blip, that will be me editing. Because as I said, I want to include everything that I've written here. And I think eloquence isn't so much the issue as it is getting out the information and to enable you to understand it and for me to deliver it sensibly. So this is the title. Arise, the new world religion. The spirit of the false prophet is here. Arise, the new world religion. The spirit of the false prophet is here. And I've got 12 points, really. No, forgive me, I've got 11 points. It's 12 points that I'm going to deliver, but it's actually 11 points that I want to bring to you. And there are 11 isms. And those of you, of course, will know what an ism is. Anything that you can add an ism to, or an ideology, or an ology to. Just as a very silly aside, there's an advert of a lady who, I think it was for British Telecom, who was very proud of her son, a Jewish lady, and she was saying that her son has an ology. And of course, if you've got an ology, like a theology or whatever ology, that makes you clever. Well, isms are on the same line, really, about philosophies and ideas and ways of living. And we'll put the little prefix or suffix ism on the end. And I've got 11 of these, and the number 11 is quite a significant number. If you look it up, it actually represents enlightenment. And of course, we know that the devil, Satan, Lucifer, poses as an angel of light. And you can almost fit the number 11 around that posing, that false posing that the devil does to try and deceive the nations. And I've also known it to be an evil number, not like 666, as we talk about, but 11 is a number that doesn't complete, does it? Not like 12, God's number of completion. So I'm looking at these 11 points this morning, 11 isms. And as I say, I don't know how many we'll cover this morning. I probably will do maybe 3 or 4, and then we'll come back to it tomorrow. And those of you that find this interesting and how it relates, we'll come back to it, I'm sure. But I want to start with the scripture. And we're looking, of course, at Revelation 13. And I'm looking at the second beast, not the Antichrist. I'm looking today at the second beast, who I think is very much underrated, but less discussed than the Antichrist. And I think that the fact that he's in here, sharing this chapter with the Antichrist, is extremely important. And I think we often miss it. But I'm going to read this section here, the beast out of the earth, from verses 11 to 18, just to get the concept. And I beheld another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. And he had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth, this is the false prophet here, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now, I never really thought about that. The fact that the first beast comes, yes, he appears on the scene, and he's the one we often talk about all the time. But I want to bring out this point about the false prophet. There are 2 of them that are turning up, because it's the beast, isn't it, the Antichrist, the false prophet, and of course the dragon, which is Satan, which of course make up a false trinity, a counter-trinity. And note verse 12, before I get into the isms, note verse 12. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast. He has no power of his own. He's rather like a vice president. You know, the president delegates his powers, possibly for a time. We know surely that when the president isn't in the White House, the vice president takes over. And in a sense, I see the false prophet a little bit like that. He seems to be the Antichrist's court magician, the one that will exercise the powers, exercise the miracles, the lying wonders. And he goes on and he says here in verse 12, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. He's the one that causes the people to worship. He's the deceiver. He's the one, not the Antichrist. He's the one that is the one that will be ultimately worshipped, that Satan will obviously be the one worshipped through the Antichrist. And so he's exercising this power like a vice president. He's the one who whispers in the ear of the Antichrist, isn't he? He's the Joseph Goebbels of Adolf Hitler. And verse 14, yes, makes it quite clear here that he does this in the presence of the Antichrist. Note this: he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. In the sight of the beast. Take note of those words. We often don't note them, do we? He's the one who will be the court magician in front of the Antichrist. Here's my miracle worker here, the Antichrist will say. Look at what he can do. Look at the fire he can bring down from heaven. Look at what powers he has. But of course, he won't be pointing to him because he's lauding him. He'll be pointing to him because he, the Antichrist, is the one that holds in his hand the people. And he uses the false prophet to bring these things about. He's the one who will outwork these things. So, he does the miracles in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast. He doesn't point to himself. He says, you must make an image to the Antichrist, because of the wonders of the fact that he had a deadly wound and was healed. Now, the first ism. Now, I've got 11 of them here, and none of them are new. Many of them are, in fact, many of them go back a long way in history, and some of them are relatively new. And the point I want to make here is that since March 2020, really, an army of religious spirits, I've written here, have been released to prepare the world for Antichrist worship. An army of religious spirits. That actually was going to be what I was just going to talk about. I was just going to talk about the spirit of religion in the churches. And then it began to expand, and it began to develop this message. And as I say, since March 2020, an army of religious spirits have been released to prepare the world for Antichrist worship. You might say, why religious? There's all sorts of, as I just said, there are all sorts of isms in the world. But let's define a religion for a start. I've written here, a religion is a power that is superhuman and controlling. It's a superhuman controlling power. That's the belief, isn't it, that we have. If we belong to a religion, we believe in a controlling power. Now, to certain kinds of people, that controlling power has nothing to do with being superhuman. And that brings me, in fact, to the first ism. And of course, we can make a religion out of anything, can't we? There are people today that are making a religion out of a certain procedure. Excuse me, I dropped my Bible. Making a religion out of a certain procedure. And we know what that is, don't we? That one they stick in your arm. And it's referred to sometimes as COVIDianity. And anyway, that's an aside. The first ism, you might like to write these down. Rationalism. Rationalism, really born out of the philosophers, the idea of reasoning. Very much, of course, back in the I think it was the 17th century and late 18th century Enlightenment, when men began to wake up to various ideas. And of course, it was expressed in poetry and expressed in art. But with rationalism, it has that base out. The base of rationalism is that it has no emotion in it. It has no sense of instinct. It develops through the mind. And I've written here, it's basically opinions that are based on man's knowledge and fed to the masses. A form of rationalism, a form of ideology, anology. And of course, one can say, yes, there are all kinds of ideas that are rational, but they have no supernatural element to them. But yet they can become a religion. I have a friend who's also a Jew like me, but he isn't a Christian. And when I write to him about various subjects, can be talking about the various aspects to do with this, he will always come back with what I call a benign explanation. It's always devoid of emotion. It's very analytical and very particular. He was some sort of a statistician in his working life, and so he rationalizes everything. He puts everything into little boxes, and those little boxes don't contain any elements of emotion at all. No sense of instinct. Could there be some sort of a gut feel to why something might be wrong? And he doesn't have that idea at all. He's a rationalist. Secondly, related to it, the other ism number 2, intellectualism. The power of the mind. I've written here, the power of the mind to analyze rather than to recognize the spiritual reality. The idea of picking apart something with your mind and coming up with a certain idea, again, devoid of emotion. Usually somebody that intellectualizes has a rather dead spirit. They don't have that sense of anything that could be outside of the box. It all has to fit into neat little packages, again, related directly to rationalism. But intellectualism has a snobbishness about it. It has a sense of pride about it. And looking at the false prophet, he's been at work, the spirit of the false prophet. I'm not saying necessarily only the actual man, the false prophet, but the spirit of the false prophet, as I'm alluding to the title here, is really the spirit that has been pervading the world. And as we know, many antichrists, many false prophets have gone out into the world and are now going out into the world. And of course, as we see in the comments, people referring to some of the videos that are on there on YouTube. And of course, some of the stuff I've posted, I've been accused of all sorts in the comments, as one would be. But intellectualism, using the power of rational thinking. Intellectualism and rationalism, the power of the mind, a dead spirit. Ism number 3. All these are tools that the devil has been using and putting out through false prophets. What's the false prophecy being spread about today in the world? Environmentalism. Environmentalism. And I'm putting it down here, and I'm explaining it here as the false concept of protecting the earth against what is considered to be harmful. I'll read that again. Environmentalism is a false concept of protecting the earth against what they consider, or what is considered to be harmful. And we know, of course, that carbon is now the new enemy. And the global powers want to get rid of carbon, don't they? They want us to all not be using any fossil fuels. The idea, the concept that we can destroy or get rid of the very basis of life on this planet, which is carbon, carbon-based life. And so comes the idea of removing something that seems to be harmful. And the important thing here to note is the fact that it isn't harmful. It's a lie. It's a false prophecy. You know, you've got these ladies in the American Congress who are declaring the world is going to end in 12 years and we need to do something about the environment. And you get Prince Charles standing up, last chance saloon. Oh dear, what are we going to do? The world is about to end. And they bring this hysterical spirit with them, don't they? This concept that everything is going to finish. Yes, there have been species that we've lost. Yes, land has been lost to the sea. And ice sheets have melted to some degree. But we've seen these things happen, haven't we, across the centuries. We've seen cycles of climate change, cycles of different things happening, ice ages, warm places. And so environmentalism becomes another form of religion. And so people are out on the streets demonstrating. Extinction Rebellion, get rid of that carbon, that nasty stuff. And people are starting to believe that. And the message, of course, goes out to the masses. It's always the feeding to the masses. The people that will buy a newspaper and then just glance at the headlines. Oh, yes, of course we do. We need to really get rid of carbon, don't we? Yes, it's very harmful. And then we realize that we don't realize We don't realize that actually it's a form of suicide. Nations at the moment are trying to deplete their energy systems of fossil fuels in favor of things like wind, nuclear power. Of course, these things are useful, but to completely get rid of a fuel. But really, let's face it, the false prophets at work here. It's an excuse, isn't it, to bring everybody into a particular paradigm, into a particular form of thinking. And of course, carbon taxes are going to be enormous. They're going to push people, aren't they, with financial penalties, that you're going to pay carbon taxes if your business is putting out too much carbon. Your footprint is too large. Environmentalism, another false concept put out by the Antichrist and his false prophet, the spirit of the Antichrist and his false prophet spirit. The real ones are coming, yes, but aren't there many Antichrists? I mean, those that are preaching this message. Anyway, going on. Ism number 4, Safetyism. Now, all these you can find on the internet. Safetyism, this is a new one. I've written here, designated safe spaces against hate speech, protecting the lie. Satan has to protect his lies, so he has to cut out, he has to censor, doesn't he, everything that is against his narrative. And this is the spirit now since March 2020, since these religious spirits have been released into the earth at a rapid pace. Safetyism. Oh, we can't have that person speaking in the university because they're going to go against what we believe. And they might just give us some ideas that we don't want. So let's protect ourselves. This is why we're seeing the big tech platforms, aren't we? Censored. I've been watching some videos lately, and in the middle of the videos, a great big grid censored diagonally across it, and suddenly the sound goes. You see, safetyism. You mustn't hear that message because it might damage you. The powers above, the powers that be, don't want you to hear it. They want you only to hear the message of their prophets, their one-stream narrative. They want to protect the lie. And of course, this is getting bigger and bigger. It's like with myself, I'm not only on this platform now. You'll find me on RTN TV, and where I'm sharing a platform with Jacob Prash and Memorial Ministries, and there's Devout Truth. There's various ministries on there, various platforms. And if you don't find me here, then trustfully you'll find me there. I've also opened a Rumble channel. We have to find ways around these things. And in time to come, there'll be other platforms that I'll be looking for to avoid the safetyism. And this last one I'm going to deal with this morning, and then we'll come on tomorrow to the rest of the isms and what I believe the Lord is saying through this message. But this is the last one I'm going to deal with today. Scientism. And I've written here, only the science that they determine is truth. Follow the science. Yes. Evolution, of course, has been taught, hasn't it, in schools for many, many decades. Those of you who might have watched it, I don't know. These films, these Hollywood films, tend to form or coagulate or solidify ideas in the minds of people. And there was a film many years ago called Inherit the Wind. And it was about the teaching of the creation story in schools. And there was a massive court case concerning this, where a teacher didn't want to teach creation. And I believe in the film, I might be mistaken here, I think he won the case, that it isn't, the idea of the six-day creation isn't the only way. And the film seemed to turn that idea on its head, that you could teach anything. And of course now in the United States and in schools, the creation story isn't taught as scientific fact. Even though there is the Institute of Creation Science that does exist and puts out its ideas. I remember many years ago seeing a series of films called Origins, and they were put out by an extremely competent and qualified professor. And of course these films are lost to antiquity now. So one man's expertise is what's listened to, isn't it? Since March 2020, we know who those experts are that come on the mainstream media. And what do they say? Follow the science. Follow the science like it's some sort of a religion, some sort of religious concept, scientism. But of course, it's the scientism that they want you to believe in, the one that they determine is their truth. And we know, of course, that experts can be found in many, many areas. And there are experts and there are experts. There was a politician in this country a couple of years back when we were going through the whole thing with Brexit. And people were saying various things, and he was saying that we've had enough of experts. And I begin to feel that way myself. And that seems to be the position on it. And so to conclude this part this morning, I just want to sum this all up and say that the false prophet and the false prophets that have come before him, maybe the false prophet is alive today, I don't know, but he's ushering in this new religion. The new religion of rationalism, intellectualism, environmentalism, safetyism, and scientism. And we're going to be looking at the rest of the isms tomorrow, but just to say that this is emerging, and it's a conglomeration of all these things. It isn't just the one; it's the mixture of all these things together, and this is the spirit of the new world order. And we know the men that are propagating it, and we'll look at that tomorrow. So, if you find this message interesting, I would suggest that you come back tomorrow, and we'll do part 2. I don't know if there'll be a part 3. I still have quite a lot of material to go through here. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a blessed day.